Design has become an essential element for a brand or project. However, making each design with accessibility in mind is extremely crucial. A design is only useful if it's accessible to the user, anywhere, anytime. This is a quote from Mads Sogard. We often think designing with accessibility means to design solely for individuals who have disabilities, but that's not the case. Navigating in the internet is not reachable for everybody, or at least not easily enough. And in this case, we are not talking about the price. We are talking about the contents and the services, accessibility. This is a quote from Ruben Arrizabalaga and Tim Smithers. Now, let's take a look at some disabilities that should be taken into consideration when designing. Visual disabilities are for those who have trouble seeing distance, those who are blind, and those who experience color blindness. Auditory disabilities are for those who have hearing problems, which can range from minor to complete deafness. When it comes to mobility disabilities, this is for people who have a difficult time using their hands and arms. They may have muscular and skeletal conditions and are unable to use or access common things properly. When it comes to seizures, this is people who have sensitivity to light, motion, and flickering, and often suffer with epilepsy. And when it comes to learning disabilities, cognitive disabilities need to be kept in mind. A big challenge for all of these disabilities is when it comes to web accessibility, considering that if not done properly, it can prevent people from using it. Here are some ways to ensure that your web design is more inclusive and user-friendly. So when it comes to visual disabilities, you should not rely on color as the only visual representation. This can be done by describing the shapes or forms as opposed to the color of an object. You must choose colors carefully for people who suffer with color blindness. This can be done by ensuring the contrast between the background and the text are legible. A good resource to check out is the website called Contrast Checker, which allows you to check if the contrast between the colors you're using is legible for someone who has color blindness. And you must use forms and tags to help users better identify what needs to go where. Avoid using tables and ensure that lists are HTML proper, as well as having verbal options like alt text. When it comes to mobility disabilities, your websites need to be able to function without the use of a mouse. It must be keyboard friendly, and it's good to keep in mind the exclusion of hovers. When it comes to auditory disabilities, it's important to have captions and subtitles, as well as it's important to provide transcripts when necessary. When keeping in mind seizures, it's important to avoid abrupt flashes on the screen. As well as with learning disabilities, it's important to provide simple and readable content. However, web design is not the only place in need of being accessibly friendly. Sometimes, the copywriters, designers, and developers are creating barriers for those people by having the aesthetic factor in their mind rather than accessibility. This is a quote from Andrea Popescu. When it comes to products, many brands tend to overlook accessibility for aesthetically pleasing. Packaging in specific can be difficult for people with disabilities. Some considerations that should be implemented for the visually impaired are symbols or braille, readable fonts, and high contrast graphics. For those who have learning disabilities, the contents on the package should be easy to read and understand. And finally, those with mobility disabilities should have easy to open packages. There should also be options for the user, allowing them to use the product easier. An example is the Microsoft Xbox Adaptive Controller, which was made specifically for disabled gamers that have reduced mobility. It was packaged in an easy-to-open cardboard box that had hinges to make it pop open. By ensuring that the overall design of a product can be inclusive will not only help make your brand more recognizable, but will also target more sales. Another area to focus on ensuring accessibility is through online classes. Since the global pandemic, there is a huge shift in the way teachers are going about instructing their classes, but are they keeping accessibility in mind? According to an article, paying attention to accessibility when designing online courses in technical and professional communication, 3 main principles that should be implemented are representation, expression, and engagement. Now looking at this a bit more further, teachers should be providing multiple ways of representation. This is crucial to ensure that the important information is being represented visually and audibly. A good way of ensuring this can be to have information written out on screen, as well as having captions turned on during presentations so users can read and hear what is being taught. Teachers should have multiple ways for students to express and complete assignments. Assignments should come in different formats to ensure that those who may face certain disability constraints are valued for. And finally, teachers should provide multiple ways for students to be engaged in the course. It may be difficult for some students to participate, so it is crucial that information is made available on other platforms for them to look over in case they had any questions that they could not ask. Overall, when it comes to design and accessibility, it is crucial for it to be considered in more than just one specific platform. Common areas like the internet, packaging, and online learning should be taking more consideration to ensure that these platforms are inclusive and accessible. Thank you for watching. I hope this video has helped. Here are some additional websites that you can visit for more information.